Well, welcome back again to another episode of My Hope is Built On. And we have another amazing guest that we are just so excited to have with us today. He goes by the name the Medic Todd. And so we're excited to hear Todd's story. Todd reached out to us and, we got a chance to chat with him a little bit. And there's some amazing things that we're going to hear today that Todd has to share with us. But before we get started, Todd, first of all, thank you for being here today and welcome to the show. But why don't you go ahead and tell the audience a little bit about yourself, who you are and what you do, and then we'll get started.
All right. I appreciate it, guys. Thanks again for having me. I really appreciate taking the time to let me on your podcast and do a little, session, talk back and forth. But my name is Todd Spence. I've been in emergency medical services for over 20 years. And 15 of those years, I've been a paramedic in the state of Tennessee. I worked for a very busy ALS ambulance service in which we see, 5 million visitors a year, especially here in East Tennessee. In that time, for the past 10 years, I've been a tactical medic on our Sheriff's Department SORT team, which is our Special Operations Response team. Wow. And whenever I'm not doing that, I hang out with my kiddos to be a dad as best I can. I'm an educator as well. And then currently I serve the role as a 911 director of Sevier County. So,
Wow. So you basically are keeping yourself very, very busy.
Absolutely. Yeah. Don't like to be bored.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Right. Well, Todd, the show's about hope. And so the big question of the day is, number one is when you think of hope, what do you think? How do you define that? And then number two is really, what is your hope built on?
It's a great question. First and foremost, hope to me is to basically live each day. So I hope tomorrow I'm better than I was today. I want to make myself better. I want to push myself. I want to learn from my mistakes. I want to be a better father, to learn, to be a better husband, be a better medic. We learn every single day. And my hope is very faith-based. We are in the Bible Belt and, we have a church every, 100 yards just about. So very big in faith, especially in my line of work for the past 20 years. I've seen the hand of God and the hand of the devil. I really have. I've seen things that I can't explain. I've seen miracles that I can only, give the grace to God because it shouldn't have went anywhere else. There's no other rhyme or reason why something might have happened that way. Right. So we definitely see that. My hope is built on, of course, religion, my faith in God, and the passion that I have to serve and the passion I have to serve the community and helping people as far as a paramedic goes. There is a fantastic Clint Emerson who has a couple of different books out there, a great author. He has a basically thing that says hope is not a plan. And it isn't, but it's one part of it. So with hope, to make yourself better, to learn and grow from your mistakes and have goals, that's what hope is for me.
Wow, that's awesome. Pretty good. I like that definition. I think that's a good one. You mentioned something already in the show, and it was something that intrigued me too, even in our earlier conversations, which is you've been able to see the hand of God and you've seen the hand of the devil. Yeah. For a lot of people in the audience, well, we can assume what an act of God might look like because it's something that was so catastrophic that anybody that walked away from that situation or circumstance, it was like an impossibility. But what when you think of something that was done by the hand of the devil, what is it that you would say that looks like?
The biggest case in point is I have seen the worst one, I guess, was the 2016 wildfires that we had in Gatlinburg. We had over, unfortunately, we lost 14 people. unfortunately, you know, we did lose that many people, but it could have been a lot worse. It could have been a lot more, because where the fire started was at the national park that went down into a 4-lane road into Gatlinburg, Tennessee. And we had millions and upon millions of structural damage and fires and everything like that. We had 300 active fires in 7 hours.
Wow.
Okay.
Wow.
A lot of your metropolitan fire departments don't see 300 fires a year, you know, and luckily, no firefighters were really severely injured. But I will tell you, as boots on the ground, I was on the ambulance that night, and we were in places that we never should have been. I will attest to that wholeheartedly. Our ambulance was black from the soot. Our paint and our lettering was bubbling up. You know, we were going into homes to get people out that were waiting to the absolute very last moment to get out.
Yeah.
Hoping that everything would kind of, you know, go about and hopefully directional and everything like that. According to the National Weather Service, at one point in time, it was like 128 degrees in the middle of downtown. We had 96 miles an hour winds, and we live in a valley. We live in a mountain range, so it just whips through there.
Yeah.
Whenever I see, the devil was literally everywhere that night. You know, as soon as you thought you had one fire taken care of, 5 more spotted around you. Homes, residents, businesses collapsing down, people entrapped, people engulfed. So I definitely seen that side of it. And then the other thing is that I've seen and taken care of people, looking in their eyes, taking care of them. You can just sense the pure evil. Okay? And, you know, there's all kinds of different calls that ring in my mind and stuff like that. But it's just, you know, you can tell, but just by looking at some people sometimes and just by talking to them, that, you know, you are looking at just absolute pure evil. So
that's incredible. Can you, you know, again, I could only imagine that you've had some pretty amazing experiences, you know, that are probably lending itself well to a great book someday, right? But one of the things that I was thinking of, you were saying you seen some miracles. Is there a miracle you could share with us that just stands out to you and maybe in what you've done?
Yes, sir. There was a little 4-year-old girl, and her nickname was Mojo. And her family had come in from different parts of Georgia and Alabama to come up to do a huge family reunion. And they were staying at one of our local resorts, and a big place. I mean, you know, huge place, huge pools and stuff like that. And we got the call for a submerged toddler, and she had drowned. Wow. We got to her in 3 minutes. The scene was chaotic at best. Family members running around and, you know, just losing their mind, which absolutely we all would as fathers and stuff like that. There's no doubt about that. So we responded with the fire department, and like I said, we got there immediately, and we have what they call a Mayday situation, or we address over the radio and we give a code. And what that code means is send the fire department, send the police department. You know, we're in distress, we're in danger. A person had pulled Mojo from the pool, set her up. She was lifeless. She was not breathing. She did not have a pulse, everything. So my partner started CPR, started doing chest compressions. I intubated her, laying on the pool floor. And as I'm doing that, family members are walking on me. You know, I'm 6'4", 325, bald and good looking, and they are absolutely just walking all over me. And we get her in the back of an ambulance. We stabilize her. We start an IO. We get her intubated. I got her intubated before we even left the floor, and she was full. I mean, she was full of water and everything like that. And all of a sudden, as soon as we get her into the ambulance, and as soon as those doors close, I got a pulse back.
Wow.
And we immediately called for air support, and air support come in, landed at theater, took her in, and took her to East Tennessee Children's Hospital in Knoxville. Drive time, going as hard as I can go in that ambulance, it takes me about 40 minutes to get to East Tennessee Children's Hospital. It takes them about 9 minutes. So one of the walls that we run into a lot of times is we treat the patient, we take care of them, and we don't hear a lot of outcome.
Yeah.
And it was one of those things where I actually heard about this outcome because they called me back from Children's. So, here it is. It was probably around 6 or 7 in the afternoon when this happened. So I get a call about 11 o'clock that night from Children's Hospital from a nurse that I've dealt with numerous times. And she's like, she's fine. She's made it. She's in pediatric ICU, and the family wants to see you. And I'm like, okay. I said, I'm still on the ambulance. I can't do anything today. But I will I'll come and see them as soon as I can. She made an absolute full recovery. There was some concern about lack of oxygen to the brain, if there was going to be any kind of brain damage or anything like that. There was none whatsoever. And I attributed that to miracle, right time, right place. Everything worked. Everything went together. Everybody worked together as a team, and we got this little girl back.
Wow.
I went up to my partner a couple of days later. We actually went up there to see her, and the family was there, and we got to meet all of them, and got to meet her and stuff like that. And as soon as I walked in the door, she said, "I remember you." And she didn't know me from anyone, but she's like, "Yes, I remember you." So that was a few years ago, but she's alive and well and doing great.
That's awesome. Yeah, that's a great. I love hearing those stories. Obviously, those are the best. I think we all do. Hey, one of the things and again, thank you for your work as a first responder. Honestly, I mean, I think, when we talk about the subject of hope, I mean, even first responders bring hope to people when they see them, right? Because it's like, wow, it's kind of like somebody's arrived, and when you arrive on the scene, it brings a sense of relief and a sense of hope because you're there now to help the situation, and it helps alleviates some of that pressure in that moment because you're there. Sure, they're still frantic. Sure, but there's just something about a first responder when they show up to the situation that really kind of changes the dynamics. And part of it is you guys have been trained to really show up and be calm in those situations, right? I mean, that's correct. And so it's to really bring everybody a level of peace in those moments, as difficult as it may seem, right?
Right. And, I've always told everyone, and we always get a bunch of students and stuff like that. And I've always told them that, they don't call us to just see what we're doing. This is the people's worst day, and you have to give them assurance, and you have to walk in that room being confident in the ability that you have to take care of their loved one. Mm-hmm. I said, don't walk in the door being cocky, because they're going to see right through it. You want to be confident in your ability and know what you're doing, and talk to these folks and tell them exactly what you're doing. I strive to, every time that I put my foot on the ground or I stepped out of that ambulance, that I wanted them to say, okay, hey, Todd's here now. You're okay. You're going to be taken care of. So that's what I always strive to be.
Yeah. So that's good. No, that's really good. Todd, I just out of curiosity, what made you go in this direction?
It was happenstance. It really was. It was, I was actually going into law enforcement. I had everything lined up. I was getting ready to make the plunge, and All of a sudden, I was with the local volunteer rescue squad, and my captain come to me and he said, "Hey, we have a spot in EMT school and we're going to pay for it. And do you want to go?" And I was just going to use it as, an extra tool for the toolkit, if you will, on the cruise.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, it'd be something to have. So as soon as I got into it, boom, I was hooked. So I was hooked. And then immediately after I got out of EMT school, I worked at the ICU for a little bit and started with my local ambulance service. A couple years later, I went to paramedic school, and I was there ever since.
Wow. That's really good. That's really good. I was thinking as you're talking, I do some teaching around the subject of servanthood, and there's something about a servant heart that you have to have. And have you always genuinely just really had that heart, a servant heart, or did it kind of grow when you stepped into the role?
No, I always wanted to help people.
Okay.
And I can remember all the way back to, joining the Cub Scouts, just wanting to help people, and it just kind of grew from there and kept on going. Still have the passion I did the first day I started, love helping people, love taking care of people.
Yeah. That's awesome, man.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I did have a question. Like in those, yes, this whole podcast based around hope. And so I did have a question as far as when you get calls and you're on your way to them, you said you have a faith background. Is there like a prayer that goes on that you have beforehand? What is something you kind of do to get yourself kind of ready for whatever situation that comes?
Affectionately, if you can kind of, they always call me Batman because I carry a bunch of stuff with me all the time. And that's just and I still do this day. Yeah. My wife can attest that she's like, "Hey, we've got a bag for every single situation that I can come into." And ever since I can remember, I've always carried some form of cross with me. And I would be lying to you if I told you that I didn't get nervous on calls. I do. As you're responding to the call, you're doing a checklist in your head. And then I always said a silent prayer to, help me, give me the guidance, give me the ability to help this person. Because I'll be honest, we didn't really know what we get into until we got there.
Yeah, sure.
Whenever we do big missions with the sheriff's department, we do a prayer together with everyone, and you hold your brother's hand, and as you're getting ready to go into really danger that you're going into, and my favorite Bible verse is Ephesians 6:11. Put on the full armor of God, so you may take the stand against the devil and his evil schemes. And we use that a lot. And because we never really knew what we'd run into. And in the ambulance, you would have folks that would say, pray with me, pray for me. And I, we'd say always.
Sure.
We didn't ever push the fact because, some people liked it, some people did not. But, I never turned down any patient that said, pray for me. So.
Yeah,
that's pretty cool. That would be exciting to actually have that happen. The one thing a lot of people don't understand too, kind of going back earlier in the conversation when we were talking about miracles and talking about the hand of God and seeing the hand of God. One of the things I firmly believe is obviously that people are created by God. And as a result of that creation, you are endowed with gifts and abilities that only could have been given to you from God. And so, and you've enhanced those abilities, obviously, as you've learned and you've grown and you've developed, but more importantly, you're using those talents now as an active participant in what God is doing. And so when those miraculous things happen, I do believe that doctors are part of that miraculous thing. And I do believe that first responders are provided that miraculous work, and I think ultimately that God is in control and sees all that situation. And so when you guys show up, you're a part of facilitating the miraculous, if you will, when it turns positive. So I just, I just want you to recognize, that you're part of a much bigger story, and you're just being plugged into it,
Yeah.
Yeah. And we were actually, I was listening to a Bible podcast last night, and they said one thing that kind of stuck to me, said, God pursues you. And he wants you to do what you're doing, get better, maintain, don't become complacent, and continue to make yourself better.
Yeah. Availability is the big word of the day. You always make yourself available and you'll be used.
Absolutely.
Awesome.
Well, Todd, I'm really appreciative of your time today. I'm so thankful that you actually reached out to us. That was really encouraging. And I know that everybody that's going to be listening to this is going to be blown away by what you had to share with us today. So I'm really excited. Is there any next adventure for Todd? I mean, I know obviously you're still going to continue to do your job, but are you looking to make some pivots and some changes, and maybe something that people should be paying attention to and looking forward to?
We're doing a couple things. Of course, love education and being an educator and getting out there. So, we're doing a lot of stuff with our local churches and our local community to protect themselves. Unfortunately, we've had a couple of active shooter situations here lately, locally. And one broke out at a Walmart of all places, but luckily it wasn't that bad. It was testosterone that was jacked up with pride. And that's kind of what happened with that. Another thing is that I'm in the process of finishing up a children's book.
Wow, that's awesome.
And it's called What's a Tactical Medic? Because whenever we go in and talk to kids and stuff like that, a lot of them don't know what we do.
Right.
And they're like, well, who do you go with? Or what does actually a search team do, or a SWAT team do, or a SWAT team do? And we go in there and we tell them, and we bring our gear in, and I bring our canines in, and, I bring my medical gear in, and we show them.
Yeah.
Wow. That'll be awesome. Actually, I think
that's really cool.
Yeah. So we're looking forward to that. Well, David, you want to close this out?
Yeah, sure. Well, again, Todd, thank you so much for just joining us and, again, reaching out to us. It's been great talking to you and hearing from you. And we just appreciate you and what you do. And I know there's many others that appreciate you and the service that you do as well. So thanks.
All right. So as always, people, stay faithful, stay hopeful until the next one. And look forward to seeing Todd's children's books, everybody. All right. Thanks a lot. Everybody have a good one.
Thank you.